Hey guys, Mark Sedlock here with Trade by the Numbers. I want to put together a quick video today. I get a lot of questions regarding trend, and so what I want to cover in this video today is, well, trend and how you can use it to increase your odds of winning, and not necessarily just your winning percentage, but also increase the size of your wins. See, if you're trading with the trend, not only are you going to win more frequently, but you can have bigger wins, which means you actually can have a lower win percentage and make more money. So before we dive into the content, I want you to know I'm going to be building a system live in front of whoever wants to attend. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to walk through the hypothesis to the actual rules using if-then thought processes, to testing those rules, to putting the testing into a server that will crunch a ton of data, and then to analyzing that data, and then to trading. So if that's something you're interested in, go to my website. The link is in the description below, and get signed up. All right, let's get started. So let's take a look. This is the S&P 500. As you guys know, we've had a lot of volatility over the last couple months. And one thing to point out is each time frame has its own trend. So if I look at a 5-minute chart, a down move on a 5-minute chart may appear to be a downtrend, but if we look out at a 15-minute chart or a 60-minute chart, we're actually just retracing inside of an uptrend. Does that make sense? So you got to be, the trend is all relative to the time frame that you're trading. So it's very important that you use multiple time frames to determine direction you want to trade and to help you with your entries. So what I like to do is, if I'm using a 5-minute chart for my trading time frame, which is a chart that I want to take trades from, then I want to use either a 15 or 20-minute chart for my high time frame. I personally like multiples of 3 or 4 between my trading time frame and my high time frame. So let's take a look at some examples. So right here on the chart on the right, I have a 15-minute chart. The chart here on the left is a 1-hour chart. So there's a 4 multiple between the two. You can see this move that we are in the middle of right now on the S&P 500. I'm sorry, this is, actually I've got S&P 500 on one and NASDAQ on the other. All right, now that I have the charts corrected, let's continue with the analysis. So if we look at the 15-minute, you can see the down move that we've had. It looks to be like a pronounced downtrend, which if we zoom out on the 15, I would consider this a downtrend on the 15-minute. How do I define downtrend? Well, I look at market structure. So I'm looking at, higher lows and higher highs, and at what point do those break, and then we start forming the lower highs and the lower lows on the move down. So I always look for what I consider to be the last pivot, which is where price pivoted higher and made a new high. And once that last pivot is broken and we've created structure to the downside, then I consider the trend to have flipped. So on this move, this is my last pivot. We make a lower high right here, a lower low right there. At this point, we have not confirmed the downtrend. That downtrend is not confirmed until we close below this pivot low. Now, me personally, in order for me to consider it to be closed below, I want an entire candle to be below that pivot low. So if you look at this candle right here, the high of this candle actually touches that pivot low. So I'm not actually considering a downtrend until this candle closes. You see, this candle is the first candle I have where the entire candle is below that pivot low. So now at this point, I will only want to be looking for shorts. Now, how would I do that? Well, if this 15-minute is my high time frame and I'm considering this to be the trend, then I'm going to go down to a 5-minute and look for a potential trade. But I'm not going to go into all that in this video, guys. This is just high-level trend analysis. Now, if we look at this down move here and we zoom out to a 60-minute chart, you can see on the 60-minute chart, we haven't confirmed a downtrend yet. Okay? We have our last pivot is right here. Okay? Right there. And this pivot gave me what I would consider to be an uptrend. But we don't have, on this move, we do not have a lower high and a lower low yet. We have a lower move, but there hasn't been a retrace and then another push down. We only have our thrust down. So on the 60-minute, right now, I would consider it to be a neutral trend, meaning there is no trend. So I have a downtrend on my 15, I have a neutral trend on my 60. Okay, let's continue. Let's go out and look at a 4-hour chart. So you can see on the 4-hour chart, things look a little different, don't they? If we look at this move down, this is our last pivot, right? So we have a move up, move down. Actually, we have one right here. Move up, move down. So on the 4-hour chart, this is the last pivot that I would have been looking for to break to flip from a downtrend to an uptrend. So you can see on this chart, we have a move down here and then a move up. And it's at on this candle right here, we have a full candle close above this pivot. So I would now consider the 4-hour to be in a bull trend, and look what happens. We retrace right here back into this pivot and head higher. You see, this is where you're going to get your best trades. This is what I found when I was doing a lot of research on market structure, was how do I find a pivot on a higher time frame. But then if you think about it, guys, once we're inside of this pivot, we want to analyze this bar on a much lower time frame to determine the best point of entry to allow us to catch a larger move. So you can see we had the move here, up, then we had it again, and we had another move up. So if we look at this chart, we can see that right here, we had another pivot, okay? Even though, and guys, look, everyone does this different. I do it on a very aggressive way, but I consider this to be a pivot. Okay, even though this high is not higher than this high, we never really had a pivot on this move. But we move down and we get a pivot here. So you can see what's happening right now in real time. This candle has potential to be the candle that voids this uptrend. Now, we don't have a pivot for the down move, so we would just be neutral. Okay, so again, we have the 15-minute was bearish. The 60-minute was neutral. The 240 is neutral. Let's go one more time frame out and go to a daily, and let's see what that looks like. Okay, on the daily, this was our pivot. Okay, we had it here to the upside, we break it, and we make it to the downside. We make a bullish pivot here and here, but we have not broken this one. So the daily is in a bear trend. And look what's happening here, guys. We have potential for this move to be a pivot down. All right? So what you have is a failure inside of this bearish pivot and potentially making a new bearish pivot right here. Now, we had a very similar looking chart back in 2009. Let's go take a look and see if we can go back to 2009 with the data that I have on here. Actually, I'm not sure if the S&P 500 futures traded back then. They did not. So guys, let me switch this over to the Spyder Etf. Okay guys, this is towards the end of 2007, leading into the last big crash that we had back during the financial crisis. But on this chart, you can see we have a pivot here that takes us higher. Okay, and then we have our move down, and we don't break the pivot because you can see these bars are still touching that pivot low, but we do create a pivot here. All right, so then at this point on this candle right here, we break that pivot low, and look what happens. We move back in right here. We have a beautiful little pivot right here. Boom. Very small but aggressive pivot. We move back in right there. We get a nice move, initial move. We head higher, all right, making a new pivot right here, but we have not broken this one. So this right here looks very similar to what we're dealing with today. And you can see what happens. Goodbye, right? And this is what ended up actually charging the move down. Now, I'm not saying we're going to have a big move like this, but it is something very interesting to take note of as we speak. I'm watching it very closely to see if we get similar action, right? Because we had a pivot here. Now we have a potential pivot down here. I don't want to see him break this. Okay, I don't want to see him break this pivot, move back into a new one, and look for the move down. All right, guys. Hope this was helpful. I encourage you to take this information, just go look at some charts, and you're actually going to start seeing this over and over and over again. And this was actually the hypothesis that I had when I started building out the system that I trade today. So I hope this serves you guys well. Talk soon.